Hello and welcome to the Denasha Harrison Show here on Intellectual Radio, where we feed our brain. If you want to call into the show, 708-223-8953, or if you want to call me directly, 224-800-9719. Just to clear some things up, if you're trying to call and get information for the show, after the show, 224-800-9719. And again, if you want to call in while we're on the air, 708-223-8953 here on the Denasha Harrison Show. So before we introduce our guests, I'd just like to say my piece real quick. Thank you for all of those who continue to support the Denasha Harrison Show. Uh, Time after time, although I'm here on Wednesdays from 8 to 9 usually, the support doesn't start or stop just on today. The support has been ongoing, it's been very continuous, and I'm very humbled and very grateful about all the doors that have been opened up because of this show and because of you all supporting the show. So please continue to do so. And as I always say, if you don't dig the Denasha Harrison Show on Intellectual Radio, there's so many other shows on this platform. We are one big family. So if you want to catch any other show, I really recommend that you subscribe to intellectualradio.com. So if you go to intellectualradio.com, there's a subscribe button. Hit that subscribe button, and you'll see a whole bunch of other wonderful shows that might suit you more than this show. But continue to support the Denasha Harrison Show. So with that, I'd like to get into it. So I would like to introduce to you your homegirl, Jillian. So, real estate mogul. She's doing a thing here in Chicago. She's given a lot of people a lot of opportunities, to include myself, and we'll get more into that. We met several years ago when I was in the market for a house, and straight up, black and white. Wasn't trying to sugarcoat anything. Wasn't trying to sell me something I didn't want to buy. Wasn't trying to steer me wrong. And I've always remembered that. And I was on social media and came across some of the things that she was doing and reached out and asked if she wouldn't mind coming on the show. So your homegirl Jillian, thank you for coming on the show. How you doing?
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Good to see you.
Yep, I love this platform. I love what you're doing. So thank you for including me.
Well, after this show, I'm looking forward to you talking to the powers that be about having your own show.
Absolutely. We're going to try to make that happen.
So let's get into it. How long have you been doing what you do? First, explain to the people where you're from and what you do, and let's get into how long you've actually been doing real estate.
Yeah, so Jillian Owens. I go by your homegirl Jillian in the Chicagoland area. I have been a realtor for the last 7 years. I have been a broker owner for the last 2 years. So I own my own brokerage now. Right now I'm just an agent of one myself, but next year I'm going to start recruiting agents. But been in real estate for 7 years. I can truly say I believe this was part of my destiny. I have a passion and a love for this industry, not only what we're doing for consumers, but just who we are as realtors and our industry, and knowing that we are impacting people's lives, home purchases, even selling property. I mean, it is a huge deal, and I'm glad that we get to be a part of helping people with their real estate needs.
What has been some of your biggest challenges? I don't know if transitioning is the right word, but going from um, getting into the real estate game,
Mhm.
learning the game, and then now actually having your own brokerage
Mhm.
portion of what you do. Take us through some of those challenges when you started and now that you're managing what you're managing.
Right.
Talk to us about that.
Well, I'll just kind of back up a little bit, just a little bit of history. So, originally, I come from the education industry. I was a dean for a university for 15 years. So I saw changes happening in that industry and decided, why not try my hand at real estate? Bought a home. My cousin was my realtor, and I saw how easy it looked. Right. So
How
I
easy it
decided
looked.
how easy her job looked. So I decided, hey, I'm gonna get my real estate license. So went to get my license, went through the courses, took the exam, got my license. What I thought was going to be a second, like part-time job quickly became a second full-time job. So I was doing both jobs and business was taking off as soon as I let people know within my what we call our sphere of influence. So people that family and friends, as soon as I and colleagues, as soon as I let them know I was doing real estate, my phone started ringing. So the transition was easy for me, especially because my education background, um, like I said, I was a dean and I taught as well. So I know how to, work with people, find out what their needs are, and I'm a problem solver as well, and I'm a people person. So it was really easy for me to transition from education over into real estate. I would say the biggest challenge was getting started as a new agent, right? Because you take the what we call the pre-licensure coursing, and I believe it was 75 or 90 hours. I can't remember what it is. I know my real estate people that are watching are gonna say something that I don't remember what it is, but you take these, multiple hours of a course, go and take the state exam, the national exam. None of that prepares you to be a realtor. So it is, you're learning the law, you're learning rules and how to conduct yourself as a realtor, but the day to day of what it takes to be a realtor, they don't teach you that.
Actually being out in the field.
Absolutely. Luckily, I came from an industry in education where I knew how to work with people. And like I said, I'm a people person. I relate very well to people, so that was easy for me to do. I know some people treat this as a transaction business, but I don't. I become a part of my client's family in essence, right? Although it might be a short term time, hopefully that's a long term relationship. But I was able to use my people skills, but I had to figure out how do I now implement this new business right into my life, and then how do I do business? Because in essence, realtors, you're working for yourself. Now you may work for a brokerage, and the hope is that you get with a brokerage that is going to train you on the day to day, how to grow your business, what to be doing to get, excuse me, to get leads, things like that. But not every brokerage does that well, or you might not pair well with every brokerage. So the biggest challenge, I think, for me, was kind of trying to get myself up and running on the business end of things. So like building my CRM, building it. Yep.
CRM.
So that's a customer relation management
Okay.
system, right? So that's how you keep in contact with all of your clients with leads and things like that. So, a lot of times you might not get that information in the class or as you're going through the process to get your license. They're not telling you all the things that you're gonna have to do to be a realtor, or even the cost. I tell people all the time that ask me about this industry, and that's one of the main things I'm very transparent about, is it costs to be a realtor, and you have to work, um, I would say, to get deals, but you have to be successful in order to cover those costs, right? So, there's a lot of things that I think a lot of new realtors struggle with, is building their own business, trying to navigate this business, figure out where they're going to get their business from. And it's just a struggle. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for a lot of people. And so I always tell people, get with a mentor, network as much as you can, so you can find that mentor or a top producing realtor that has can guide you through the way, and you can kind of watch and see how they're doing things. So mentorship in this business is very, very crucial.
I'd have to say when was it 5 or 6 years ago?
Hmm.
I was in the market for a house, and one of the things that I did take away from our interaction was not just your professionalism, but the you're very personable, you know, and as I said in the intro, you wasn't trying to sell me on anything. I think a lot of people come in, you know, already apprehensive, like, okay,
Mm,
they're gonna try to upsell me on this. They're not going to tell me, that the roof was just put on last week,
right.
or, you know, and I can say that my experience with you was very genuine, right? Because when I saw some things that was messed up about some properties, you called it. You was like, "Yeah, no, this is not
Hmm.
gonna work." I
Right.
remember. I'm not gonna call no streets, but I was trying to get back on the west side,
Mm,
Austin area, and that was one house, but it was like all yard and it's set
Right.
way,
I
way
remember.
back,
Hmm.
right? And so I'm trying to figure this out, right? And I'm trying to figure out how is this a house?
Hmm.
I mean, the space was amazing because I think they probably tore down something
Right.
in the front. You can tell me the truth now. So, um, but I don't think I really asked. But I think there was a house existing on what was
The
pr-
previous lot. Yep.
right.
Hmm.
And when I went to the back of that house, I think we were both looking, and I don't think it was too many words exchanged, but we both was like, "Yeah,
Nah.
nah,
Right.
this not gonna work. I don't know
Right.
who it's gonna work for,
Right.
but it's definitely not gonna work for me." So, but one thing that I took away from the interaction with you when I was looking for my house at that time was that it was just real genuine, and I think that a lot of people can really appreciate when they're making such a huge investment and when so much is on the line, it's not usually just about that person. It's about their families. It's about, um, the total quality of life. How far do they have to travel back and forth for the job? What's the neighborhood like?
Hmm.
What does the neighborhood have to offer? You might want to have a wonderful house in a wonderful area with a wonderful price, but is it really worth it
Right.
when you don't have businesses that support, when you don't have the infrastructure that would support the cost of living
Hmm.
and that actual property. And so, are we really doing ourselves justice by selling someone anything? And so when I met you, I just really took away from that interaction how genuine you were, which was always much appreciated. Didn't move on the west side of Chicago, um, but I always remembered that, and I really appreciated that. So, do you remember the first property that you ever sold? Is that something that realtors do? Like when you sell your first property, you
Right.
like you put it like on a mantle or something like that.
Yep.
Like okay,
We don't put it on the mantle, but it
okay,
stays with you
it
because
stays with
that
you,
that first property, that first sale, the first transaction, you're going to remember that experience more than anything, right? Because that's where you're going to learn the process. You're going to learn, what did I do right? What did I do wrong? And what do I need to work on, right? And that's from the transaction itself. That's from dealing with my client. That's with covering my work on the back end. You're going to learn a lot. And so you're going to remember because you're going to have make mistakes on a first property sale. So I do remember a client that I had. I think she was referred to me from someone that I was working with on credit repair. And it was his mother, actually. And she had never bought a home before. She was in her 50s, first time home buyer. So I, got this call saying, "Hey, Jill, can you help my mother buy a house?" Absolutely. So I took that head on and met with her. I think the most important thing that we could do when we're meeting any new clients is sit down with them and get to know that client, right? I don't want to just meet you at a property and start showing you property,
right?
right? And the rules have changed now. We can't do that anyway, but now it's things have changed where it's set up for us to, either meet with you in person or do a Zoom so I can get to know exactly what you're looking for, what your wants are, what your needs are, what your long-term goals are for this property. And so that's what I did with her. And she didn't know what she was looking for. She had never owned a home before, had been renting in Chicago for all of her life. So it was a new experience for her. She was nervous, just unsure. So that's part of our job too. No, I'm not going to push you, but I want you to understand the benefits and even the long term um, benefits of just home ownership. Period. So I'm constantly pushing that, especially over renting. I am not, I'm not saying anything negative about renting, but my goal is to make as many homeowners as I can. So, just trying to reinforce that with her. But that first property transaction, I remember it, dealing with the other agent, dealing with the seller, and then trying to make my client understand everything that was happening. Not only, was I new to the business, but she had never gone through this before. So just being as transparent as possible. She knew I was new. I didn't sugarcoat that it wasn't it was my first transaction. So, but she was patient with me. But I explained to her everything that was happening. So she was not in the dark. And I wanted her to be educated. And that's one thing I pride myself on. I want to teach and share with my clients as much as I can about this, about real estate and about buying. This may not, although I work with a lot of first time homeowners, it might not be the first house that you ever buy, unless it's your forever home. But I'm like, I want you to know how this process goes, because I not only do I want you to know, but I want you to tell other people so they feel comfortable in their pursuit of buying a home one day, and to know that it's possible.
So that's a great segue into the next question.
Mhm.
You talked about how she rented, all her life until she was in her 50s.
Mhm.
So what are well, I can only assume because I rented too. And for me, my experience was I woke up one day and it was May, and I looked at how much I had to pay for my rent, and I said, I'm never doing this again. And I didn't look back. But what are the challenges? You talked about some of your challenges when you first started. What are the challenges that you see people face when they are trying to make that transition? So I know some people are in a better position financially. Uh, uh, Credit scores are better, for some than others. Um, but what are some of the biggest challenges that you see when somebody says, okay, I'm waking up like Danasha did one day and I'm saying, I'm not paying rent anymore. I'm going to go buy a house. What are some of the challenges that you see?
I think for, you know, renters that contact me, the biggest challenge is they just don't know the process of buying a home. So, it's up to me and any other realtor in this profession to walk that person through what is the process. And a lot of times it is, how do I buy a home? And I mean that in terms of financing it, right? So not only financing, but then credit. You mentioned that as well. So those are the two biggest things is, finding out what their credit score is like and what credit challenges do they have? How much debt are they in? And then parlaying that into them getting with a mortgage broker or a mortgage lender to find out what they can afford. And then really walking them through the process of buying a home. How much money do they have saved in the bank? These are questions that I'm asking, because these are challenges that I see a lot of renters. They don't know where to get started.
Right. We're used to first months, last months,
Exactly. Right.
and credit good enough to get in.
Yep.
Right. So with that, what are the components? Can you briefly explain, like, you have to have this, and this?
So for home ownership, I'm gonna say, I'm not a mortgage lender, so I'm gonna preface that
Okay.
now, right? So,
Disclaimer.
disclaimer, absolutely. But I'm gonna say a minimum of 580 credit score. That's what I would tell
Wow.
a lot of buyers. But depending on how I see things and happening in that current moment, 620 is really what I kind of tell people. There are programs out there or lenders that can get you approved at a 580, depending on other factors, right? But I like to tell my potential clients a minimum of 620. But or defer to the mortgage lender to kind of have that conversation. But I would say a minimum 620 credit score. Your debt to income ratio needs to be low. And so that's, debt to income is the debt, credit card bills, student loans, car payments, things like that, in comparison to what the income that you're bringing in. So that ratio needs to be low. Bank statements, they want to know, how you're spending your money. So they want to see what kind of savings or assets that you have. And then, it's really the first step that I tell people is really we need to find out, can you get a proof or mortgage if you need to finance? And then we need to know how much you can afford. So those will be the steps.
Okay, that's
Yeah.
good information.
Yeah.
So speaking of the banks, what is your opinion about their position when it comes to specifically Black families trying to get that loan? You hear a lot. You hear a lot on social media. You hear a lot on the traditional media platforms that things have been discriminatory towards Black families. They got a 740, 750 credit score. They got you know 10 G's in the bank that they haven't touched in over 6 months. Nobody just dumped it in there for them to buy a house. Things look well on paper. Do you really think it's a fair assessment that um, the majority of traditional banks are against black families in certain areas to where they're not allowing for them to uh, get those loans that they need to move in certain neighborhoods. And I know we're going to talk about redlining a little bit uh, later on in the show, but let me back up and rephrase the question since this is your business, right?
Mhm.
Do you think that some banks are fairer than others when it comes to people trying to get loans for houses?
So I think that's a great question. I think that's a question that a lot of people have. Disclaimer again: I am not a bank official or a mortgage lender, right? And I'm going to be honest. You know, we talked about my honesty and what I do, but I have not had a client that's experienced that.
Okay.
So a lot of my clientele is in the Chicago area. I'd say about half of my clientele is Chicago, another quarter probably south suburbs, and then another quarter southwest suburbs. So I pride myself in the people individuals that I work with. So I have two or three lenders that I refer clients to because I want them to take a pick and they can talk to multiple people, not make a decision based on one. Um, I work, I refer the same attorney, same home inspection company, things like that. So I have a very close knit group. But as far as mortgage companies, the individuals that I have worked with over the last, and I say the group that I've worked with them over the last 4 years. They pride themselves on non-discriminatory practices. Now, I've heard stories from other realtors in this industry, especially in the more urban areas, right? So they've had clients that have experienced uh, discriminatory practices from lenders not wanting to lend to them, and on paper, they satisfy all the requirements: credit score, um, salary, or not salary, just income, period, job status, and assets and things like that. And, they'll go to one particular bank and they'll get half of what they would get at a different mortgage company. So, I do think that there are different factors, and it might be things that we're not privy to, but I think that there probably are some discriminatory practices out there.
How do you think people can advocate um, if they're ever faced with that type of situation? I know for myself, I think it's important to tell people to take their time. Like, when I talk on the show, I always talk about, your circle, your circle, your circle. Make sure that no matter how big or small your circle is, that your circle is giving as much as receiving, right? You don't want bunch of a bunch of associations with things that are not, pouring into you. And so when it comes to this, I believe that taking your time would be um, good advice because when we see something, we see that shiny house.
Mhm.
We know that we're gonna have about another 3,500 hit the account, next week.
Right.
So that'll put me in a better position financially. My credit score gonna jump about 10 points because
Mhm.
they just took that off. So I'm gonna be about that 620, six
Right.
thirty.
Ooh, and don't let it be tax season.
Right, tax season, right?
Right.
So, but lenders can see what you just dumped in your account,
Mhm.
and they can see
Absolutely.
how long you haven't had anything in your account. So
Right.
something to consider. But um, one thing that I would say would be to take your time on such a huge event that's going to occur in your life. A lot of us ain't got it like that to where we can move into a house for 2 years, flip out, get another house, and pull equity out of that house. A lot of us don't have it like that. So I think that an ally, uh, in this case, if we ever come up on someone that's discriminating against us and we got our things in order, is to not rush or push or force the process. What do you think?
Well, I think for one, it's a conversation that's probably not being discussed enough, right? So for those that they feel like they're being discriminated against, I mean, I think that we need to be vocal about it. Whether you are escalating that issue or taking that issue to the institution where you felt like you were discriminated with, if you're talking to um, your local politicians in your area, because they're affiliated with the banks, and so these are discussions that I just don't think people are talking enough about it. And I think you have to speak up. We've got to talk about it. in order for things to change, just, as much anything. But I think that, people have to speak up. And you see that now more on social media. We're getting stories all the time. As soon as we open up our phone, well, especially I do because of all the real estate stuff I follow. So, there has been discriminatory practices noted in the appraisal process, right? I think that's something that a lot of people see more common when you think of one of the discriminatory issues in real estate. So, appraisers, if they walk into a home that's being sold and they see that it is a home of an African American other cultures, right, black or brown, they may undervalue that property because of the race that's in that home. So
So I've heard that people have taken their pictures down
yes.
in their homes
Yep.
because of the appraisal process.
Mhm.
And I also believe that that's one way that the lender can kind of get around that discriminatory nature. Hey, the appraiser said it was worth this much, so
Right.
there's nothing I can do about it. If the appraiser says it, then that's what I got to write. And I think that that's one of the ways that you know that the institutions get around um, that discriminatory process.
But I would say that's where advocacy comes in, especially
Mhm.
on our part in the real estate industry. I mean, I like to think that realtors are the glue that keeps these transactions together. So we know what's happening. And oftentimes, when our clients are either buying a home or even when we're selling a property for a client, we know what that home is worth. So, if an appraisal comes in and you don't agree with it, and your client doesn't agree with it, and you feel like race may have played an issue with this, that's when you need to challenge it. We have to advocate for our clients. S- s-
Okay, so you know what? We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Denasha Harrison Show here on Intellectual Radio. We're going to take a quick musical break. We're going to get more into what we're discussing concerning clientele and things of that nature. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
You ain't got enough money to buy my soul. Ain't strong enough to stop me. I'm out of control. This dimension's a Neo. I know that I know. I am that I am. That's why I speak so bold. On the verge of losing hope. I know where to go. Switch my style from singing vocals to magical flows. Study the streets a little closer. One with the ghetto. Got wise as I got older. Unloaded the metal. New millennium rebel. After that federal dollar. Balanced the world on my shoulders. I know my soldiers are following we at war. Cause kids still dying in the streets at war. On the block running from the police at war. In the US, this ain't the Middle East at war. With the problems in my own community in the store. If the only way to fight an enemy, Lord, save my father from this bottom to Hennessy. What more can I give? I'm giving all of me, and for real, it's only getting hotter for me. Harder to see and harder to breathe. And there's only one remedy. I gotta be smarter than my enemies. In the water, wade in the water, children, now wade in the water. God is full of trouble. I'm being chased by demons, the triple team exposed to false religions. I'm hated by jealous niggas that don't wanna see me living my life scarred from living hope. Pulling up papers, I'm chasing paper, no hoes barred. Peace of mind, and yet to find my heart's cold. Got the friends, my last road dog turned me in. The cost of war would never change. Who takes the blame for bad decisions? So many missing for following orders, cause ill giving got the world tripping. They pushing prison at us young niggas. That's why we haven't had triggers, won't let the war get us. I'm not alone with the way that I feel. It's like millions out the clutching they steal, roaming the field. I am what I am, and best believe I'm following me. A guinea pig, I refuse to be. The streets got a hold on so many lost souls and sold. I pray to God he starts letting me go. No, I'm not a fool, and I'm definitely not following rules. Hoping that the Lord pulls me through. When I'm at the gates, standing before Christ, and he's flipping through the pages in the book of life. Final judgments being made as he look in my eyes. All I can vision is the wrong that I've done in my life. Close my eyes as I look back at the sky, the puzzle pieces. Demons to try to stop me, and all I wanted was freedom. Better living for my people. Did you ever hear my cry? In my mind, I never understood why we were born to die.
Welcome back to the Denasha Harrison Show here on Intellectual Radio. We are talking to your homegirl Jillian, real estate extraordinaire. And if you just joining me coming off the break, we were talking about that actual advocacy core, right? Uh, on the break, we talked about how we believe it's important that the experts, the actual realtors, be the best advocates. We shouldn't have to search outside of that professional circle for people to advocate for different institutions, whether it's the lender, the appraisers, to do the right thing. In your experience, is that something that you've ran into often, like with other realtors, just having them come together to call out things that just wasn't up to par?
Absolutely. Like I said, it's networking is a big part of this business, but because we all go through these transactions and a lot of times we're working together or we're just sharing experiences, you find that you go to association meetings or just real estate industry events, and you're having these conversations and you're finding out that people are experiencing some of the same things. So yes, you are banding together because what we're stronger in numbers, right? So people hear us louder when it's multiple of us. So you almost have to um, talk to others about it. You want to talk to people within your local realtor associations, people that hold leadership roles. You want to talk to the state where, individuals that are advocating for real estate. These are some of the issues that we're seeing. So yes, yep, you have to talk, bring in others.
So earlier we were talking about the aldermans. Like
Hmm.
here in Chicago, you have aldermans. You have, I don't know if we still have precinct captains or not. I know back in the day we did. I know you have block presidents, things of that nature, but you definitely have to talk to the local leadership to point out those unfair practices if
Hmm.
there are unfair practices going on. Uh, I believe that a lot of people just don't come to the table correctly. In my experience, not that I've ever sold a house, but in my experience talking
Yet
to,
you haven't sold a house yet.
okay, so yeah, we're gonna claim that.
Right,
So we putting it on the table, we're gonna
right,
claim it.
right.
Put that with the other 20 things that I'm doing. But I believe that a lot of people don't come correct to the table. They don't have the earnest money. They don't have the credit score. They don't have an idea
Hmm.
of where they think they want to live.
Hmm.
They haven't prepared to either break the lease or let the lease run out. They're trying to have things overlap. They want to make sure they're filling the gap. So I think that a lot of the a lot of, well, I'd say some of the issues, because I don't have any numbers in front of me. I'm not sure, but I believe that some of the issues is that people are just not prepared to make that transition. Even if you do have, if you're blessed with the resources, the financial resources, you're blessed with the credit score, you still have to get out of your rental. You still have to have all the moving costs necessary to locate or relocate to where you think you're going to be living,
Hmm.
or you got to put it in storage. So there's a lot of little costs that, well, that turn into big costs
Right.
because it might be a delay on the closing of the house.
Hmm.
The seller might change their mind. It could be a lot of things going on. So because of that, uh, I believe that being forthcoming, being honest, is one of the ways that you can help somebody with the transition. But what are some of your tools that you use to help someone transition from, say, Section 8 or renting into owning properties?
So you hit on the key word with part of your question because it's a two part, but preparation, right? And that is, to me as a realtor, not only am I advocating for you, my client, Mr. Mrs. Client, in this process, but like I told you in the beginning, I want to educate you. I'm an educator by trade, right? Not well, what I went to school
By
for, but
nature.
by nature, right? So I want to educate you on the home buying process. Not only I'm gonna talk to you about what it takes to get finance for a loan. Now I'm gonna connect you with individuals that are gonna help us do that, but I'm going to walk you through the home buying process, and I'm going to be with you through the home buying process, and I'm going to be transparent with you through the home buying process. But I'm also going to educate you. I want you to understand these steps that you're taking, why they're necessary, and I want you to understand the process. Because I think a lot of people hear, oh, so and so, I bought a house, but people aren't sharing their experiences with one another. So that's another way that people just aren't prepared. So a big part of a realtor's job is to prepare that person for buying a property. And, I'm working with a client now that I'm selling his home, and he is pre-foreclosure. So, we've walked through that, process, but he just outright told me, I bought this house and I had the down payment, but nobody talked me through what it was like for home ownership, right? He didn't know, oh, I need to take care of my roof, or oh, I need to make sure I'm doing exterior maintenance. So it's more that we're educating you through the home buying process, but I want to educate you about what happens after you buy that home. Paying your mortgage on time. There's just things that a lot of people don't know. So when we talked about coming from a renter to a homeowner, those are things that I'm talking to you about. And after, you purchase the home, I'm not going to just walk away. I'm checking in with my clients every 3 months. How are things going? Especially my first time home buyers. How are things going? Any questions? Did you get that tax bill? Do you have a question about it? If you do, let me answer it. If not, let's take it we can go to the county, or let's go back to the attorney that we used to purchase that home. They could help us. So I'm checking in with my clients, and I want to make sure that their experiences, that they are, managing home ownership, because in essence, you have to manage it. This is something just like a car. It has to be taken care of. And I think a lot of people, between just maintenance and just even saving money, because things are going to happen in a home, just like a car, right? So even savings, part of what I, started offering this year is letting my clients that have bought a home partner with a financial advisor. If you're saving your money, I want you to have a nest egg for your home, but let's talk about home ownership. And I know we're going to transition to this later, but equity, so building up that equity in that home, what to do with it, so getting with a financial advisor to talk about your financial goals, and even saving money, and including your cost of owning a home in that financial, plan.
Well, you're talking about it, so let's go ahead and talk
Right.
about it now. I mean,
Okay.
you already transitioned into it.
Okay.
No, but uh, you're absolutely right, and I know we talked about redlining a little bit.
Mhm.
I'm not going to get too much into it, and I'm going to tell you why. That's that's a series in itself
Right.
about the how tos, but I do believe that our people were in better positions at the time to purchase, and one of the reasons that we hit so much opposition was because we were prepared. We were prepared after World War I. When our fathers and 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 men came home, with money enough to level the playing field. After World War II, same thing. We had enough money to level the playing field in order to purchase. And I believe at that time, lenders were truly the opposition when they drew the lines in the sand, so to
Mhm.
speak, and when they cordoned us into certain areas and stopped us from owning into areas that were are now more diverse than they were before. And you still have places in the Chicagoland area that are very segregated. You don't have to say it or agree to it. I'm gonna say it because I don't sell houses. So I think one of the most segregated places still to this day is the Oak Park area on the west side of Chicago, right up against the South Austin area. And I never tried to buy a house in Oak Park. And so I'm not gonna talk and act as if I did. I do know the taxes are sky high in Oak Park still.
Mhm.
Historically, they have been. There's a reason for
But
that.
I was gonna say, do
There's
you
a
know the reason for that?
I believe it has a lot to do with keeping a certain tax base out. And I believe that those people in that certain tax base, or tax bracket, look more like us than the people who are actually living there. That's right. I said it. And then I'll stand on it because I can look at the facts about it, which I'm not going to get into now. But I grew up right across from, Cicero and Lake, Fulton. As soon as you cross Fulton, you're in Oak Park. And the contrast is astonishing. It's a huge difference. I remember getting ran out of Oak Park by the police just because I'm walking while black, and not up to no good. It's still daylight, and I'm getting ran back on the other side of Fulton. And so there are places that still exist like this. And I believe it has a lot to do with the stigma of redlining in the past. Of course, I believe that we've done a whole lot to eradicate the discrimination that has plagued our people for so long. You know, they attack affirmative action. We're doing diversity, equity, and inclusion now. So, with social media, with the emphasis on DEI, I believe that it's very hard for institutions to openly discriminate, which is why when you talked about, you know, the appraiser going in and
Mm.
actually um, giving their opinion, their professional opinion about what the house is worth, I believe that that's one of several ways that discrimination is still alive and well. So, with that, you spoke about investment.
Mhm.
I buy a house. Is it a smart investment to buy a house versus renting? And if so, why?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Right. And I'm gonna kind of defer that back to you. Let's
Oh,
you bought a home, right? And you were a renter. So tell me.
I'm paying myself.
Okay, there we go.
So I am paying myself.
Hmm.
A lot of people don't understand if you buy a vehicle, you don't get the title until you're actually done
Done paying
paying
it.
off
Right.
the car. But when you get into home ownership, even though you're not done paying for the home, you still got that title. You can benefit from that title. I don't care what, and this is my experience.
Hmm.
You go ahead on and put the professional
Right.
facts on it
Right.
after I say this, but whether properties are up or down, you know, equity is a real thing. I'm not about to speak on how much equity I got in my house, but I just bought my house. I haven't been in my house for 2 years, and I got a nice chunk of equity that if I needed to, I can pull out of that property. So I'm paying myself. And yes, you got more maintenance that you got to do. I love the fact that I got yard,
Hmm.
right? I can go out barefoot and ground in the grass, and we can talk about grounding one day too. But you know, to take your shoes off and actually stand in your property and watch the sun rise, and then think about all the mulch you got to put around the house, and you know, you might have to do some here or there, but it's yours. And this is something that can be a part of your legacy building portfolio. You know, you don't have to just leave your family, you know, that favorite hat, or you know, that favorite, you know, heirloom, or those dishes. You can actually leave them property that has paid you and will pay them in the future as well. So that's what I feel about buying a house. It's an actual legacy piece that can benefit um, my people long after I'm gone.
And I'll just say that's the biggest benefit when I talk about home ownership, or even just as so a large part of my clientele is also investors. So investors looking to buy and hold, or buy and flip, and that is what really gets me excited. I've been flipping myself, so it's just, it's just something we could talk about. We can have a whole nother show about that, right? But generational wealth, home ownership allows you to start that generational wealth process. I know that is a word we've heard for years, right? But home ownership has been historically one of the ways that people have started that to pass down as part of their legacy, right? Is instead of, like you said, leaving me tangible things, leave me property, something that has value, something that I can borrow against and go buy other property. That's the biggest benefit that I hear from a lot of my investor clients, or how they move their investments. They'll buy things, hold on to it, renovate it, have it reappraised or refinanced, pull that cash out and go buy something else. So I mean, that is one of absolute, hands down, that's what you'll hear me say
So
about
let's
home ownership, is generational wealth, is building it.
let's speak more into the flipping.
Mhm.
When you say, for those of you who don't know what flipping houses is, explain the process of flipping a house
Yeah. So
and how that would be beneficial.
flipping a house is, and I'm gonna assume that, I guess I'm sharing this for people that don't watch HGTV now, right? Because that's what everybody kind of watches, where you the fix and flop house, where they buy a home, flip it, renovate it, and then sell it for a higher price. They buy it at a lower price, renovate it, put money into it by renovating it, and then selling it for a higher price, right? They do that in 30 minutes, but I'm here to tell you that that is not the real process, right? So flipping, and I'll just back up. So it is really identifying a property at a I don't want to say reasonable, but at a lower entry price, right? I'm buying this property because it's distressed, and it may be worth, right, fully renovated and fixed up. That's what we'll call the ARV, not what we'll call, but it is called the after repair value. But that house, if it was renovated, may go for 300,000, but they're selling it for 75,000. I'm gonna grab that property quickly because I know, after looking at the comparables, I know what the price is. I know what the after repair value is. And then I know, okay, I'm buying it for 75,000. I've got to renovate it. So that means I've got to do what? Put money into it. I've got to fix things. How extensive that fixing, quote unquote, fixing is. It depends on the shape of the house, but I may put another 75 into it. So now I'm into it at 150, but I know that the house is selling for 300,000. So right there, outside of my costs associated with selling, because it does cost you to sell a home. I tell people that all the time. You can't sell a home for free all the time, right? So, um, you know, I may sell it for th- say 305 or 310 or something like that. And the ARV might be 300, but I'll sell it for a little bit over. But I'm into it at 150. It may cost me 25,000 to sell there. I've made my money back. I've made over 100 some thousand in return. So
How long did it take for you to look beyond the aesthetics? Like, when you're in the market to purchase a home, you're looking for all the bells and whistles of a property.
mhm,
But, as an investor that is, into the business of buying a distressed home, seeing like, okay, it's going to take this, it's going to take that in order to flip it and make a profit. How long did it take you to develop that, I guess, eye, if you will?
mhm,
Because, you know, somebody abandons a property or somebody squatting in a property, you're seeing the trash and the messed up
mhm,
furniture
right,
and, all the nastiness of a property.
mhm,
Outside, shrubberies overgrown, overtaking the structure. How long did it take you to develop that eye
mhm.
to say, okay, there's value in that property?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And I think for me, being a realtor, I started paying attention to the neighborhoods, right? So I was paying attention to um, just geographically where that neighborhood was, the particular block or surrounding blocks that it was on. I'm paying attention to what commercial businesses are coming, what new businesses are coming, restaurants, small businesses. How is that area growing, right? So I'm using those things to kind of evaluate, is this a good buy or not? It's where it is, what are the values, and long term, in 5 to 10 years, what do I predict this area is going to be like? And that might come from, paying attention to the news, talking to your, like we talked about, aldermen or your local politicians in that area.
Right. What's coming
Yeah,
to the
what's coming?
neighborhood
What are
projections?
the plans for that area,
Right.
that city, that neighborhood, or whatever? Those are the things that, as a realtor, and not even a realtor, as a homeowner, current homeowners, they want to know what's coming. That could help you decide, do I want to sell this property or not? Or this particular business is leaving. I know if they leave, then other businesses are going to leave. So those are things that I learned to do and that I've watched other people do. Another thing, and I know he's going to love this, is so my father is a contractor and a builder, right? He's built $1 million homes. And so I've listened to him I'm not going to tell my age, but for years, I've listened to him talk about the construction process. He is a designer as well. So, I've watched him and talked to him about different designs and seen his finished work or taken the before and after. So a lot of things, even as far as functionality and vision for a property, I think partially I got from him, and partially I just, not to toot my own horn, but I can walk in a property and I can, in the worst conditions,
See
see
the value in it.
vision.
Right.
Right. So that's one of the things that I learned. And then also, just by being a realtor and walking property with clients, I listen to what my clients are saying. And so, I'm hearing, oh, I really like this in the kitchen, or we really love this aspect of the bathroom, or how this is positioned. So I'm listening to what buyers are saying. So therefore I take those things when I'm doing a project, or even as I kind of coach new investor clients that are buying and flipping on what to do because they, I've done it before. So they want to know what my experience has been. And those are the things I'm telling them to look for. As a flipper, we tell people don't get vested, right? You're not staying in this property, but you want to think practical and you want to think functionality and what do I need to do to this property to get it sold? So those are the things.
Have you ever, even though that's what you're told, have you ever been so attached to a property that you're like, man, I just need to put a little bit more money into it, a little bit more money into it, a little bit more money into it, and then you realize, you know what, I fell in love with this property and I shouldn't have.
My first one, I'll say.
Your
Yeah,
first one,
my first one.
your first flip.
My first flip. Yeah, my first flip. But you're saying a property or
No,
you're saying a
flip.
flip? Yeah,
First flip.
so a flip. Trying to detach myself from I'm not going to be living here. So I'm renovating this home as if I'm going to live in it, and I'm spending more money and I'm putting more money into it than I need to. And so that's a lesson learned when you look at your numbers at the end of things and you're
Right.
like, oh, I could have saved $20,000
Yeah.
and not done X, Y, and Z,
Uh-huh.
and profited or pocketed that 20,000. So yeah, just learning how to not get vested or have an emotional attachment to that property.
Right.
The end goal as an investor, this is a business. So my goal is to sell that property and for the most profit, right? To really, really bend into that profit. So this light fixture might be a $500 more. And although it's just 500 and that's not a lot, I'm going to spend $700 less because I know this is going to have the same effect, right? So it's just making decisions that don't have an emotional attachment to it. You want to make your decisions on what's going to yield you the biggest value, for that property.
Now, if somebody wanted to get into real estate,
Mhm.
do you recommend that they take the route of becoming a realtor first, or to become an investor that wants to flip houses first? Do you think it matters? What's your opinion on
I
that?
get that. I have this conversation. I don't want to say question, but I have this conversation a lot because I am around a lot of investors or work with a lot of investors or people that want to flip or want to buy and hold property. And by buy and hold, I mean, that might be a rental property that you're buying or a multi-unit building that you're buying and you're going to put tenants in it. So you're holding on to it. But anyway, I run into a lot of investors that say, or people that want to flip and they say, "Oh, I'm going to get my real estate license." But the first question I ask is why, and then I bring up the cost that's associated to it, and they don't want to sell real estate. They just want to get their license because they think that's what they need to do in order to get into the investment part of real estate. But that is not the case.
So you can get into the investment portion of it without.
Absolutely, without paying hundreds of dollars to get a license that you're going to still pay for to maintain that license, and they're not selling real estate. So they can, what I would say, and not to, once again, this is my own plug, but get with a realtor like myself who specializes in working with investors, and that's how you partner to kind of get the advantage of the properties, of the areas, the things that we just talked about, that your realtor is able to see those things and kind of direct you into, hey, why don't you look at this area? It's a lot of activity happening in it. This is coming. This is the growth they've had over the last 5 years. Your realtor is going to know those things.
Okay. Well, speaking of plug,
Mhm.
let's go ahead and plug homegirl Jillian, or your homegirl Jillian. Okay. So if someone wants to talk to you about the how to's,
Mhm.
how to invest, how to flip, how to purchase their first home, where can they get in touch with you?
So Instagram, Facebook, your homegirl Jillian. Just type that in. It's all 4 words, but your homegirl Jillian. I Facebook and Instagram, there's a link that you can book to do a free consultation with me. It doesn't cost anything, to sit down and talk to a realtor. It shouldn't cost you anything.
It shouldn't cost
It
you anything.
shouldn't. So, Instagram, Facebook, DM me, book a consultation with me. It only lasts like 30 minutes, but that way I can really talk to you and find out what your real estate goals are.
Okay. And tell us about your businesses again.
So as
Whatever you want to discuss as far as what you got
Okay.
your hand into.
Yeah, so like right now, I'm really focused on listings right now. So I'm kind of I've worked with buyers the majority of my career, but lately I've been blessed enough to work with more sellers, and that's a different experience. And maybe we can talk about that on the next show. But right now, just working with a lot of listings, the real estate market, our inventory is still very low. So trying to have those conversations with individuals, we talked about equity, who have a lot of equity in their property, and have those conversations of, did you know that your home is worth X? So, that's how I'm getting more listings. People are realizing, either they want to downsize, or they just want to tap into that equity because they want to do like me and, go invest, right? Go flip property, or I want to buy a building and I want a house hack, which is I'm going to live in a unit and then I'm going to rent out the other unit or two. So I have a lot of people transitioning and selling their homes because they have so much equity. So, and that's the way that we're trying to create more inventory, because the inventory right now is low, and that is affecting home values right now, currently. So,
Okay.
yeah.
So this has been a wonderful show, and it's so much to talk about. And I do hope that you come back again soon, because you just talked about house hacking,
Right. I know
right?
I threw some
And
things in there at the end that,
right,
right.
which is very interesting.
Right.
And I'd love to have a show just on house hacking and about the different experiences that people go through, thinking that it's going to be easier than it is, or
Mhm.
actually getting involved with folks, who they shouldn't be living in proximity with, and things of that nature. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to you coming back on the show. And after the show, I guess you'll be talking to the folk about how you can do your own show. So your
Yeah.
homegirl Jillian's talking about coming to the Intellectual Radio family. So I'm really looking forward to those conversations hopefully going well. It would be wonderful for you to continue to share this information beyond this platform, because people need to know. People need to know the how to's so that they don't run into, the roadblocks when they're trying to do the most for their families and the most for their future. So I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
So this is the Denasha Harrison Show. Thank you all for joining me. And again, thank you for the support. Continue to support. And once again, if the levee don't break and the creek don't rise, we'll see you next Wednesday on the Denasha Harrison Show on Intellectual Radio. Thank you.